us. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Sada Shiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's try. Sorry, just give me a minute. Can you hear me without any background noise?
Yes.
Yeah, clearly.
Oh, great. Phones were not connecting. Perfect. So we had just finished verse 9 in the last class. So we continue to talk about contemplation and meditation. And Ramana Maharishi was telling us the importance of moving to non-dual bhakti, moving to the place of realizing that he that I'm worshiping is none other than me, right? And now we will continue with verse 10. You can unmute yourself and chant after me. Yeah. Isthale mana swastata kriya. Isthale mana swastata kriya.
Swastata kriya.
Bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam.
Bhakti yoga bodha
Nishchitam.
stitam.
Great. So I see everyone's a bit shy to chant. It's good to know these little Sanskrit over time because there are a lot of these, like I mentioned, cannot be really translated well in the end. So the more you study Vedanta, you'll anyway start knowing more of these, right? So this says histale mana swasthata. In the heart, the place of the eye, fix the mind. Manasvasthata means lead to an abiding mind. Kriya, referring to action. Bhakti, referring to devotion. Upasana yoga. And yoga here, referring to the Ashtanga yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga. Bodhascha, referring to Jnana yoga. This is knowledge. Nishchitam, definitely prescribed. So putting it all together, it's basically telling us absorption in the heart of the being, focus the mind within yourself, withdrawing it from the world, in your own nature, on the Sakshi. A pure mind is necessary for that. So basically, this verse is talking about all the different sadhanas which are there. The preparatory sadhanas, which are required for you to gain chitta shuddhi, to prepare the mind sufficiently enough to be able to come to jnanam and assimilate what jnanam is saying. And Bodhascha is talking also about the jnana yoga. So it's talking about what's the purpose of each of these different sadhanas. It starts with saying, in the heart, fix the mind, in the place of the eye. So while you're doing any of these other sadhanas, be it karma yoga, which is said by kriya here, or bhakti, the various kinds of upasanas that we discussed, and the Ashtanga yoga practices, the 8 limbs of yoga as given by sage Patanjali, which are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So the 8 limbs that the sage talked about starts with yama. These are the don'ts, the things to be avoided. So this is not a Yoga Sutra class. I won't go into the details of what that is. You can look it up, or we also have recordings of some Yoga Sutra classes taught from this non-dual perspective by late Acharya Nandagopalji, right? Then niyamas, these are the do's, things that are to be done. And these are the preparatory practices. Today, we kind of, when we talk about yoga, we start with asana directly, and we don't talk about all these other preparatory practices. Of course, this is not Vedanta, this is the yogic path, but is very useful for a Vedantian's journey towards self-inquiry. So after practicing these internal and external disciplines, one comes to asana. So asana is the yogic postures that you do. So there is again different interpretations of that. Some acharyas take it to simply mean Padmasana, Sukhasana, the postures required for sitting in meditation. But there is other interpretations, and there is really no need why we cannot include all the other series in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, that all the asanas that are talked about, which is useful to keep the body fit and strong to sit for long meditations. So the sequence then is asana, then pranayama, which is the regulation of breath control, which we will talk about more in the following verses. Pratyahara, which means the withdrawal of the senses, which is restraining the mind from going outwards, not being pulled outwards, coming inwards. And from there, you go to dharana, which is the concentration, the various upasanas we talked about, like japa, mental japa, and mantra meditation for achieving this concentration state. And like we said, from there, then the mind would slip into dhyanam, which is complete absorption. And from there to samadhi. So there is savikalpa samadhi, where it is complete absorption, but with distinction of the experiencer, experienced, and the process of experiencing. And from there is nirvikalpa samadhi, which is where all these distinctions merge. It's in a way a non-dual experience. Right? In Yoga Shastras and certain schools, this is considered liberation, as I've said several times, and we keep emphasizing in the Vedantic tradition, this is not, we don't consider this liberation, because liberation itself is not a state that you can come out from. The samadhi experience and this whole 8 limbs of yoga we consider extremely useful for a sadhaka's journey. But it's only knowledge which can liberate you. So before there is knowledge, all these practices are extremely useful to help you get chitta shuddhi, the purity of the mind required to be able to come to jnana. And once there is knowledge, you can, of course, continue doing these practices. And once there is knowledge, these practices leading to samadhi can be very extremely useful to assimilate the knowledge which is there, right? So it can help you keep ensure the knowledge doesn't stay at a surface intellectual level, that you're not just doing some kind of mood making, but this knowledge is really deeply percolating inside and working on all your various vasanas, your deep rooted samskaras and tendencies, so that, of course, none of this is really required because you always are that. But why do we do all this? To enjoy the benefits of that liberation, which is Jivan Mukti, to enjoy the benefits of not being caught up in the cycle of suffering, the cycle of samsara. So when you do all these different yogic practices or karma yoga or bhakti yoga, you find that you are increasingly peaceful. There is less thoughts in the mind. And this this kind of peace, and which is called this relative peace, which is called atyantika shanti, is necessary for coming to Jnana Yoga. Sorry, the temporary shanti is called the apekshika shanti, is necessary for you to come to Jnana Yoga. And it's only through the knowledge that you will get what we call atyantika shanti, which is the permanent shanti, that is jivan mukti or liberation, that can be achieved only through Jnana Yoga. So now Ramana Maharishi is telling us in this verse that he's telling us to keep in the heart, the place of the I, fix the mind. So always keep the mind on the I thought. How do we do this? So when you're doing something like karma yoga, you're engaging with the world, how do you still keep your thought on the I? So see, the I itself is central to every thought we have, right? So there is no thought which is not centered on the I. It's, we call it aham vritti, the I thought. And then there is something called the idam vritti, the object thought. So when you see, say, an apple, what happens? There is an apple there, and so there is an idam vritti. There is the object thought, the and what happens is the aham vritti, the consciousness, the awareness goes and envelops this apple thought, and then you have the awareness of the apple. So that's a bit technical way of explaining how a thought occurs. So this is from this sense that we say that there is no thought we can have which is not based in the I thought. Now, when we look at all the thoughts which are going through our head through the day, these 60 to 70,000 thoughts which happen through the day, how much of them are about the subject, are about the I? Hardly any, right? At least in the beginning of one's spiritual journey, we find that all the thoughts are focused more on the object. And while in the sense this is also supported by the I, it's not useful for us to come out of ignorance, to come out of this cycle of suffering that we would like to come out of. So through practice, through continuous practice, through continuous exposure to Vedantic Shravanam, to exposure to who the real I is through Shastra, more and more of your thoughts will start becoming about the I, the subject, and less about the object. So the perception of what this world is will continue, but the misrepresentation will start to cease. So just like when you sleep at night and go into the dream world, there is this whole dream universe which comes. There are other objects, other people, events which make you suffer or make you feel joy. But what is that whole dream world? It's all originating from your own mind. It's just that while you're in the dream, you are you're forgetting who the real I is and taking this projected dream world for reality. And imagine if you were to wake up in the dream, remember who you really are, and see the dream for what it is, just a projection. Then the dream world no longer has any capacity to make you suffer. Neither does it have any capacity to make you feel craving. And Jivan Mukti is similar in this waking world. When you wake up to your real nature, the perception of, unlike the dream world, the perception of duality, the perception of multiplicity will continue. But knowing yourself to be a higher reality than that, this world will no longer have a capacity to pull you and push you. That's the aim of Vedanta. Any questions? Okay. Let's continue with the next verse. Unmute yourself. Payurodhana liyate manaha
Ayurodhana
liyate manaha
liyate mana
jala pakshivrat
Jalapakshivrat
shivat
ro
shivat
roda sadhanam.
rodha sadhanam.
Rodasadhanam.
Rodasadhanam.
Thank you. Yes, so now we're coming to the verse which is very specifically about pranayama. So it says Vayu, breath, Rodhana, control. So by restraining the breath, the Vayu, Liyate mana, the thoughts in the mind, in the wandering mind subside. Jala pakshivrat, Rodha sadhanam, like a net thrown over a bird, stopping the bird from flying. So it says holding the breath controls the mind, like a bird in the net, it is controlled, but not completely. So pranayama helps the mind be absorbed, but not totally resolved. Now we'll come to what we mean by totally resolved. But for now, it's saying pranayama helps the mind to be absorbed. Now, this activity of breathing we do is usually very involuntary and it's quite automatic, autonomous, but it can be made disciplined. Typically, how many breaths do we take in a minute? Does anyone know? It's about 12 to 14 breaths a minute that we take, hopefully, unless you're overexcited. When you do pranayama, like say Anulom Viloma, which is, how many of you would be familiar with that, Anulom Viloma?
Yeah,
I have tried doing
I
it.
am.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
basically
I have tried it.
you, at the minimum count, you inhale 4 breaths, you hold for 16, and you exhale 8. And then you take in 8 again, hold for 16, and sorry, you inhale 4 again, hold again, and exhale for 8. So, like this, you would do about 2 breaths a minute, even at the lowest count. Yeah. So, I mean, this is any pranayama, though it might seem simple, is a technical process and it should be learned with an acharya. So, those of you who might not do pranayama, I highly recommend it again. You can maybe go look up some, either find a yoga acharya in the city you live in, or you can find some YouTube videos of Shivananda. There are some videos of me also where I taught pranayama and meditation on my YouTube channel. You're welcome to look at that and come back with any questions. Certainly, learning live would be recommended. But if it's not possible, at least follow some acharyas' videos to learn it. Right? So, why pranayama? Why this? Ama means restraint or discipline. So, why do we want to restrain or discipline our breath? Now, if you've noticed the connection between the breath and the mind, what happens when you're, say, agitated or angry to your breath? Has anyone noticed? It's shallow, fast, yeah?
Faster.
Yeah. And what happens when you're very relaxed, calm to your breath, feeling very peaceful? It's usually
Slow.
slower, deeper. So, whatever is our physiological state affects the breath. And what the great yogis realized and taught us is you can reverse this process also. So, just like the state of the mind can affect the breath, by practicing restraint of breath, you can affect the state of mind. So, there are these pranayama techniques like Anulom Viloma, which are meant for bringing equilibrium, balance to all your energy channels on both sides of the body. So you feel very calm and ready to get into a meditative state after that. There are other pranayama techniques which can help you get activated. So, for example, if you're trying to sit for your morning meditation and you still feel a bit sleepy, a bit sluggish, you would ideally start with Kapalbhati, this deep, quick exhalation that's very activating. So it can also heat up your body. It's a cold morning, which is useful, and it can create more of this rajas, which is required for you to come out of that tamasic, sluggish state. And once there is sufficient rajas, then you can do something like Anulom Viloma, which will then balance, bring you to more of a sattvic state with less thoughts, which would be very conducive for sitting down in meditation. Right? Um, so in pranayama, in Yoga Sutras, it's typically defined as Puraka, the out breath, Rechaka, the inner retention, Antakumbhaka, the outer retention, and the Bahya Kumbhaka. And there is pranayama, and then there is also this other technique called prana vikshanam, which is the observing the breath. So the two must not be confused. There is a lot of meditation techniques where you're observing the breath itself. And this is more kind of a little more advanced than pranayama. So a pranayama is useful if you find your mind is wandering, your capacity to be in the moment, be present with what you want to contemplate or meditate on is not there, which is the case for all of us, which is the case for all of us who are engaged in the outside world, because we engage in the outside world and there is a lot of things happening. So the mind gets drawn outwards. So I don't mean it like any kind of judgment. So pranayama is useful for that. But say you've already been absorbed in a very sattvic atmosphere, you have a relatively calm mind. Over time, pranayama might feel less necessary. So you might, if you find that you're already able to do pranavikshanam, which is the observing of the breath without your mind wandering, then maybe pranayama is less important. But of course, it also has a lot of physiological benefits. You know that animals are, so the number of breaths we take in a lifetime is almost fixed. So when you look at different animals and different lifespans that they have, the animals which live shorter take many more breaths per minute, right? We're somewhere in the average. Then you see something like a green sea turtle. They're the most marvelous creatures, these giant green sea turtles. I saw them when diving once. They can stay underwater for 7 hours without taking a single breath. And you'll see them come up, take like one little took of breath and go down. And that sustains them for another 7 hours. So you'll see they move really slow. They just have this very calm demeanor. Of course, we don't know what's going on in their head, but these are one of those creatures which live more than 100, 200 years. So even for non-spirit, there is also non-spiritual benefits to pranayama, which is it can increase the quality and quantity of your lifespan. Yeah. Any questions on pranayama? Okay. Let's chant verse 12. Chittavayava chittakriya
Chittavayava Chittakriyatama
Shakayodayi Shakti Mulakam.
Shakayodhini
Shakayodvayi Shakti
Shakti
Mulakam.
Puraka.
Right. So it says Chitta Vayava. Chitta is the mind, and Vayu is the prana, the breath. Right. So here Chitta is referring to the Sattva Guna, the Jnana Shakti, and Kriya is referring to the Rajoguna, the Kriya Shakti. Yuktaha, endowed with. So mind and prana are endowed with Sattvika Jnana Shakti and Rajasika Kriya Shakti. So, and Shakayodvayi Shakti Mulavam, Shakti Mulaka. Both spring from the same root, which is Maya. So the mind and prana are endowed with the ability to know and act respectively. These two are like two branches stemming from one power, which is Maya. Now, where does this come from? Some of you might have seen this analogy in another text you did. Can you tell me which text? Anyone here who did Tattva Bodha? No one did Tattva Bodha here?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Yes,
So
we've done
where
it.
is it? So where does it come from? This when they say this, when it's talking about the Sattvika Guna and Rajasika Guna, and relating the mind and prana. Where does that come from in Tattvabodha? So let me recap for you. So when in Tattvabodha, it comes in a lot of different places in Shastra. So again, it's a good reminder that Ramana Maharishi is not giving us um, some knowledge that he came out with from his own mind, but he's referring to timeless Shastric teachings. So, in Shastric teachings, when we talk about the creation of this world, the creation of this, how this manifested world came to be, we talk about Maya, right? Which is the power wielded by Brahman. Maya has these three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And we are told that everything that we see in creation is basically these three gunas. And anything changing we see in this world is made up of these three gunas. Of course, there is always the unchanging, constant substratum, which is Brahman itself. And we saw in the theory of creation that the mind was created from the sattvic aspect of Maya. And the prana and the karma indriyas, the organs of action, they originated from the rajasic aspects. And the tamasic aspect was responsible for all the inert matter that we see. So this verse is telling us that both the mind and the prana has the same mother. They are like different branches of the same trunk, which is Maya. And hence, it is only obvious that they are connected. So the mind and prana are endowed with the ability to know and act respectively. And this verse is also talking about two kinds of Shaktis, the Jnana Shakti and the Kriya Shakti. So the Jnana Shakti, the power of knowing, which belongs to the mind, and Kriya Shakti, the power of doing, which belongs to the Karmendriyas, the organs of action, and also prana, which fuels all these actions. There is one more Shakti that Shastra talks about. Anyone knows? It's the Ichcha Shakti, the will, the power of willing, which also belongs to Dantakarna, the body, the inner instrument, which is the mind, the intellect, and the ego. Right? So they say mind and breath fork out like two branches, but both are springing from the same root, Maya. So Ramana Maharishi is explaining to us why the mind can be controlled by the breath. And hence, how pranayama is a useful sadhana for controlling the mind. Now, yeah, am I still connected? No. My apologies. I had a brief power cut. Where did you lose me?
We controlling the mind on.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, I was saying how this verse is telling us how pranayama is useful for controlling the mind. Now, the next few verses, verse 13 to 16, are on the yoga of knowledge, the Jnana Yoga. Okay, so let's chant verse 13. Laya vinashane ubayarodane
Layavinashane Ubayarodane
laya gatam punar bhavati no mritam.
Naigatam punar bhavati numratam.
Thank you. So this verse tells us, it's giving a very important distinction. Laya means temporary resolving or absorption of the mind. Vinashane refers to the complete permanent destruction of the mind. Ubayarodane, these are two kinds of control of the mind. Layagatam puna bhavati no mritam. So mind submerged, what is temporarily destroyed rises again. Dead, it revives no more. So these are talking about two kinds of absorption of the mind and two forms of control of the mind. So it's telling us that what is temporarily resolved, the mind can awake again. Like what are the things which would temporarily resolve the mind? So like the practice of pranayama, the practice of dharana, dhyana, samadhi, right? Or, you do long periods of chanting or mantra recitation, all these different sadhanas, basically it's referring to all the preparatory sadhanas can help you temporarily resolve the mind. So this temporary resolution of the mind is referring to there being less thoughts. So the 60 to 70,000 thoughts in a day that we talked about, and how many other thousands that means in a period of an hour, you can bring them down to a lot lesser. So the mind is more available to you for contemplation on the real I, right? So even if someone is not looking for the spiritual benefit, which is, of course, here all of you are, hence you're sitting in a Vedanta class. But even for a regular person who has no interest in spiritual benefits, doing any of these sadhanas like chanting, meditation, upasana can give quite a bit of relative peace of mind, right? Which makes it very easy to go through life and face the different challenges that life throws at you. There are numerous studies then done on for example, the health benefits of meditation, how it can reduce everything from blood pressure to suicidal thoughts and depression. And it can increase the overall well-being. It can increase the productivity. So no matter what worldly benefits one might be looking for, any of these preparatory practices can be supportive of that. So, and these practices can help you achieve this manolaya, this temporary resolution of the mind. But it is only through jnana yoga that you can achieve, it says, now don't jump ahead, it says the destruction of the mind. Now, what is the kind of destruction that we're talking about? Are we really trying to destroy this mind, have no thoughts? It is often interpreted like that. If you see in these more neo Vedanta circles, if you go to this beautiful place, Tiruvannamalai, which is my background right now, which was the home of Ramana Maharishi, but now it's also become the home of a lot of neo Vedanta teachers, right? And neo seekers who haven't gone through the traditional Shravanam Mananam. This destruction is often interpreted wrongly as, just having no thoughts, destroying the mind, like getting rid of the mind to know yourself. That's not the destruction we're talking about. In Vedanta, when we say destruction, we mean destruction of the problematic mind. Now, what is the problematic mind? What is the problem in the mind? So, you are Brahman. You always were, always will be. Now, what is the problem then? What makes you think that, what makes you still suffer? What makes you still feel limited? Which makes you then go out and seek things of the world to fill this lack of limitation. It's ignorance, right? It's ignorance of your true nature. And by destruction of the mind, we mean destruction of this ignorance. And when this ignorance is destroyed, when you awaken to your true nature, it means that this, of course, the perception of duality will continue. You will still see other people, things, but they regain their mithya status. It's no longer taken to be real. And then even after this destruction of the ignorance, when the thoughts continue, you will see those thoughts as mithya. So there is no problem with any of these thoughts. You'll be able to witness these thoughts, just like you're witnessing scenes in a movie. Knowing yourself not to be these thoughts, not getting caught up in this lower level of reality, which is not you, right? So that's the destruction that we're talking about. It's you can think of also the analogy of the inner sanctum of a temple. Often there are multiple doors to a temple, and all these doors represent the various sadhanas that you can do to reach that inner sanctum. But once you reach the inside of the temple, there is usually only one door to the innermost sanctum. So all these other doors around the temple are the various different sadhanas we can do to qualify to enter. And to reach your final destination, there is only one door, which is jnanam. Yeah. Any questions so far? This is a bit more technical, so I hope it's clear. So is it clear, or
Yes, dear.
it's
Thank
too
you.
much? Right. Yeah, so we're talking about the destruction of this ignorance which makes you mistakenly think of yourself as limited. So we confuse ourselves with this, it's called Anyonya Abhyasa, which is two-way transference. So who am I? I am Brahman, right? And but I confuse myself with the upadhi, the limiting adjuncts of this body, mind, sense complex. And whatever limitations of this upadhi are there, right? So this is a weak body which is prone to disease and injury, and there are the limitations of the intellect. The emotional capacity is limited in some way. So all these limitations of the upadhi, I impose on myself and think myself to be limited. And all the attributes of myself, Atma, this one which is infinite, eternal, Satyam, I impose on the Upadi, right? And hence, there is grief when the body ages or a loved one dies. Because we've imposed this, what is meant to be permanent, or expecting that from the impermanent Upadis. So there is a two-way transference. And that's samsara. That's the result of ignorance. But while we do this superimposition, somewhere deep, deep down, there is still a vasana, right? There is a vasana which tells me, no, but I feel like I should be complete. I feel like I should not have any lack. And hence, to satisfy this feeling of lack, which deep down we know we shouldn't have, we try to go fill that lack from external things of the world. So, and that's the problem, because we look externally to fill that lack. We go chasing careers, we go acquiring things, we go getting rid of things which we think are causing problems in our life. And we add on degrees, we add on job titles, and so on. After how many of these things that we've acquired or gotten rid of, do we start to realize that this completeness will not be found from these external things? Do we learn that lesson at all? Or do we just look towards the next thing when we realize that this particular thing hasn't yet completely satisfied us? Maybe it satisfied us for a little bit, but that joy of whatever it gave finished, and now we look towards the next thing. Ask yourself, do you find yourself in this cycle? And if so, how do you start coming out of this cycle? Right? So sometimes ignorance, they say, is bliss, but not really. It's just that you're still suffering in ignorance. You're suffering a lot more in ignorance. But you don't know where else to look. So once you come to this knowledge that this doesn't have to be the way there is, for sure there is that intense desire to know the truth, to know myself, that's mumukshutvam. That is there, this burning desire, which becomes the last desire to be burnt away. And there is some kind of suffering in that as well, but it is the righteous fire which will fuel you in the right ways, which will fuel the discernment of all the things which will serve me or will not serve me. You no longer can hide from yourself. You no longer can fool yourself with being satisfied with the crumbs. You want it all, really. Right? So, but all the other desires are like fires. The more you feed them, the more it burns. So whatever else we go after externally, try to fulfill these goals externally, will just feed that fire more. So you need even more and more things to keep it burning. And this is exactly the misconception the world today feeds us with constantly. The world tells you to never be content, to keep striving for more, be ambitious. Otherwise, you will stagnate. And so there is this popular fable of a businessman who's on vacation in a seaside town. and he likes fishing. So he grabs hold of a fisherman and goes fishing with him. And on the boat, they're chatting. He asks the fisherman, "How do you spend your day?" He says, I fish a little because I love fishing. Um, Sometimes I use it for we use it for our food back home. If I have some extra, I might sell a little bit or give it to friends. And I do this for a few hours every day. Then I enjoy long walks on the beach with my wife. I play with my children, and this is what I do in my day. And the businessman is very judgmental of this, and because he says, "But why do you only fish like this much? Can't you? Isn't there more fish in the sea that you can get more and sell more and make more money?" And the fisherman says, "Yeah, there is lots of fish here. I could definitely catch 10 times more the fish I catch if I spent more hours doing that." And the businessman says, "Then why don't you?" He says, the fisherman asks, "Why? Why should I?" The guy says, "Well, if you catch more fish, you can then sell more fish. You will have more money. You could even, and with that money, you could hire more people, buy more boats, and you can catch even more fish, and you can make this whole like a big fishing franchise." And the guy says, "Then what?" He's like, "Then you'll have lots of money. You can buy everything that you want, and you'll be completely stable financially. You'll never want for anything." The guy says, "And then what?" "And then what? Then you can retire and do whatever you want." So the fisherman says, "So if then I want to retire on a beach and spend a little time fishing, take long walks with my wife, and play with my children. That's what I will be able to do then." Right? So I hope you get what I'm saying here. That's the world, that's the advice the whole world gives us. Right? But to keep striving for more, keep looking outwards, and this constant messaging we've received from the world uh, keeps us blinded from the real place to look at. Vedanta gives the exact opposite advice to what the rest of the world is saying. It's telling us, be content with what you have right now. Inquire into this conditioning that we've been fed with, that we need to strive for more. Inquire into the real reason behind what makes you suffer, behind what makes you crave, and address the very root of that craving. Only addressing the very root will you achieve that permanent, lasting happiness that you seek. So, anything else, any other practices you might do, can help quieten the mind, but they serve a purpose. That's not the end goal. So, this temporary quietening, temporary peace is not your end goal. This is useful for you to come to Jnanam, answer the ultimate questions for yourself, and reach the final destination, which is having that permanent peace of mind, this permanent destruction of the problematic aspects of the mind, which is the ignorance. So, how the first part, which is that manolaya, will not destroy the ignorant mind. You will still have ignorance. It's only this permanent destruction which can happen through knowledge, that you are left with an enlightened mind. And so think of it as also referring to why samadhi or this temporary destruction is not the solution. When thoughts come, you know I am. When thoughts go, there is still I am, right? So it's not the thoughts itself which is the problem. It's the problem is confusing these thoughts to be reality. So when there is knowledge, we assign the mithyatvam status, the rightful mithyatvam status to these thoughts. So whatever thoughts are still there, it's no longer a problem. By now, you all probably heard the snake and rope analogy, right? So for some of you who might be new, I will quickly give the analogy again, which is this man is walking at twilight and he sees a rope, and in the dim light, he mistakes it for a snake and he's frightened. And just then, the light comes a bit more, the sun rises, and he then clearly sees the rope for what it is, that it is a rope, not a snake. So all the fear he felt resolves and he relaxes. So this is the Raju Sarpa, the snake rope analogy we use a lot in Vedanta. So when the snake was perceived, the rope was still there, right? We just got confused. We got caught up with the snake. And this wrong perception led to all these feelings of fear and anxiety and so on. But when the light came and the snake is not there, you realize the snake is not there, you realize that the rope still is. When the snake was perceived to be there, the rope was there. And the snake was not perceived, even then the rope is there. The constant is the rope. And so don't mistake these thoughts that we are having, all these thoughts which have capacity to make you suffer, as the I. The I thought, the real I thought is always there. Look for that I. So even when things of the world cause you happiness, right? Remember that it's just that these people or things are causing a temporary cessation in this craving, in these thoughts, which helps the Atmananda, which helps you recognize the Atmananda, which is always there. So recognize this happiness that you're feeling as Ananda, which is always there. So if you practice it when things are good, when you don't get caught up, when things are good, and you can, of course, give gratitude, but watch these thoughts which say, because of this person, I'm happy. Because I received this, I'm happy. Remember always that it is your own Atma Ananda which is coming through. If you practice it when things are good, you'll find it easier to practice when things are not so good. When situations in the world are not conducive for happiness, when someone close to us is yelling at you, or you worked very hard for something and it didn't come through, right? You will then recognize that these things were never needed anyway for my happiness. You will find it easier to fall back on the Atmananda, which is anyway always present. So we'll pause here and continue with verse 14. Next. Any questions?
No.
No.
Okay. Anything comes up during the week, feel free to even post it on the group. It's always nice to have a discussion. Yes. Okay. Closing prayers. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandana
Thank
ji.
you.
For the
Thank you.
a non-Vedantic announcement for the ladies, I'm doing a workshop for ladies on the new moon. It's not Vedanta specific, but about understanding your inner world through your menstrual cycles. If anyone's interested, you can ping me and I'll send you the link. Thank you.